I would like to introduce you to the Eriksson Trail.
Throughout history, man has looked to the forest. Eriksson considers safety his first priority, beginning by equipping himself with protective clothing from head to toe and guarding against damage to his sight and hearing. You always begin the direction of your open face cut.
I have a line on the chainsaw. It's 90 degrees to the bar here. I use that to aim the tree where I want that.
Eriksson suggests that you always begin the open face cutting technique with a top cut of
Cut in the middle. That made it possible for me to control how big hinge I have. One here, one there. Now what is left is just to see how thick the hinge will be. And I start to planche cut in here and cut.
In others, the tree itself may provide enough leverage as to make use of wedges unnecessary.
Here we can see the end result
Of an entirely new approach to timber cutting. Today, Eriksson and his methods are known and practiced throughout the world.
to be able to move the whole tree in before I back it. The key to easy delimbing, this 6-point system, is how the chainsaw is built. And if you look on this particular chainsaw, first of all, you have a very flat side here, and you have one part here. That is really the key on this side. If you look here, you can see that part are holding the chainsaw up, and also you can see from this position here, the motor, the acceleration in the saw is important. The RPM, and also the balance. If you look on this point here, the balance here, the length of the bar and the weight in the back here. See, if this balance is perfect, so soon you accelerate, the chainsaw stops.
By 1963, Eriksson had become recognized as an authority in the logging industry, instructing professional loggers throughout Europe, Australia, Africa, and North America.
Where did the chainsaw techniques come from we see today? Many chainsaw operators in the past 20 years are not aware the techniques they have been taught or learned from YouTube or social media evolved from a Swedish logging instructor, Soren Eriksson. The open face technique, a bore cut or plunge cut technique, directional felling,
protection,
and personal
as well
protective
as my,
equipment use.
Safety shield and safety glasses.
Soren was very instrumental in the development of chainsaws coming from Scandinavian countries and Europe in the 60s and 70s. The designs in many cases were built around his 6-point delimbing system, which was an important part of forest work at that time. The contours of the saw, the balance points, the switch and handle positions all became part of what Soren was helping to develop with the manufacturers. Other products which Soren had part in development of, chainsaw boots and foot protection that was around, the helmet systems from Bilsam and Pelter, chainsaw gloves and mittens, cut resistance, face screens. Soren was one of the first to develop a face screen for face protection in chainsaw work. The ProSight height measuring tools. A file holder with a double-ended file that could be reversed and very comfortable to hold. He was the North American importer for Instex chainsaw protection, ballistic nylon that became the standard for many of the protective garments for chainsaw operation. Chainsaw-resistant chaps and pants. The Grand Force 5-pound wedge axe. Kevlar-lined chainsaw protective boots. Chainsaw operator work clothing, jackets, shirts, protective jackets. Summer, winter wear for chainsaw operators. Fuel cans, combi can development. All of these things were ideas that Soren had and followed through with manufacturers to add these different features, so chainsaw operators had a much easier work Soren came to the States, and shortly after starting work with Westvaco, Weyerhaeuser, Scott Paper, he started up Soren Eriksson's Swede4 product line. He began developing and manufacturing in Eclectic, Alabama, which later moved to Summerville, South Carolina. Swede4 was sold out to Grand Swordsbruks from Sweden, and later has become Grand Forest Incorporated. Soren's ideas and clothing and PPE all became part of Steel, their PPE lineup in the 80s and 90s. The Game of Logging Incorporated that Soren and I had together was transferred over to New York Lumbermen's Trust, and Ed Wright is now the president. They continue on with the instructor groups across the country, and also the collegiate program that was started back in the Steel days was very instrumental in spreading Soren Eriksson techniques throughout the trail. Over the years, sponsored by Husqvarna, Steel, Dolmar, and Oregon Tools. Soren influenced many areas and industries. And one of the first that helped Soren get started was the American Pulpwood Association, now known as the Forest Resources Association. Ken Ralston and later Richard Lewis put Soren out to industry. And this really helped to be able to get things started with the training across the country and promote the game of logging. The U.S. Forest Service, Dennis Helton, organized one of the first programs at Grandfather Mountain, North Carolina. Chris Janey with Mead Paper and their program, Iron Equipment, the steel distributor, was real responsible in getting Soren's training going. Jack Paul with the Tennessee Valley Authority. TCIA and ISA through influences of Arbormaster training. Paul Sear with OSHA and the Certified Loggers Program in Maine. All of these people and organizations helped to get Soren established, and Soren helped them in reducing accidents and injuries and increasing productivity. Soren has had quite an influence on YouTube creators. Creators like Moss Waffle, the Maine Organic Farmers Organization, Iron Horse. He was involved in training with Soren years ago in the logging industry. Keegan the Tree Guy. There are many, many creators, when you look at their techniques, have come from Soren. The U.S. Forest Service and the Alaska Extreme. Open face felling with Brian Wagner from Forestry Mutual in the Carolinas all the way down to Mississippi.
Top branch. Today we're going to show you how to do the
Casey does an excellent job.
Right now, I'm going to make my typical face cut.
Graduate of University of Maine's Forestry. Cotton Top 3. Large YouTube creator, very good instructor. Joe Glenn Training out of Missouri. One of the top game logging instructors. John Adler was one of the first trainers that Soren incorporated into the game of logging program. Mark Chisholm, part of the arborist programs in the early times. Mark is an excellent instructor working with steel. Hi, Tim Ard here, and welcome to this edition of Along the Forest Apps Road. Recently, I had some questions about notches. 2-3 questions about it, and also a little discussion about how a notch should be formed. Carrie Shepard, a Husqvarna. Ken Palmer, Rip Tompkins, Arbor Master Training. Dwayne Newstetter with Arbor Canada, well known in the United States as well as Canada. All of these and many, many more are located on YouTube that have influence from Soren Eriksson's trail.
By 1963, Eriksson had become recognized as an authority in the logging industry, instructing professional loggers throughout Europe, Australia, Africa, and North America.
Chainsaws have been good to me, my business, and my family. Chainsaws have kept my bills paid and afforded me a very blessed life for almost 40 years of my 66. I owe a lot of my success to the man and his Eriksson Trail. I became a student of Soren Eriksson after being introduced to him through a poster that was given to me from a chainsaw distributor representative in 1978. The poster was showing Soren with personal protective equipment and explaining his 6-point delimbing system and the open-face notch. In about 1982 or 83, I went to work for steel distributor Byron White Equipment in Austell, Georgia. One of the first training that I was privileged to watch was one of Soren Eriksson, discussing cutting and chainsaw safety. Shortly after that, Soren was to do a training demonstration in Middle Georgia, and I was asked to help out with saws and coordinating with the dealers. I was fascinated by his saw work and became a huge fan and promoter of his work. I was at Steel Incorporated until about 1990, and Soren and I had worked many projects together across the USA. Steel's management had changed about that time, and Dave Zerfoss, who had started the program with Soren at Steel, left to become the North American president of Husqvarna. Soren and I both left Steel, and we formed a joint promotion company, Game of Logging Incorporated, to spread the game of logging through the competition Soren had developed with Scott Paper Company. We wanted to grow them all across the wood industry. A safety and productivity training with competition that gets results. I published the Game of Logging newsletter, about 15,000 copies mailed every quarter, and began organizing training workshops, keeping both of us busy across the country. Soren constantly coming up with new training concepts, PPE, and product ideas that were sold through Steel, Husqvarna, and his manufacturing company, Swedfor, which Soren owned. It was sold out, though, and a few years later to Gränsfors Bruks AB of Sweden, and is now today Grand Forest of Somerville, South Carolina. The Game of Logging competitions grew as well as the requests for training programs. Loggers loved what they learned and the chance to win saws and cash prizes. In about 1995, Husqvarna wanted to gain recognition with the tree care industry. We became aware of a couple of arborists that were competition top contenders in the ISA tree climbing competitions. Ken Palmer, Bob Weber, who left the team, and Rip Tompkins to incorporate the Eriksson techniques into tree work. It grew rapidly in the industry. We formed Arbor Games, which soon after became Arbor Master Training. In the early 2000s, Soren began taking more time with his wife and family, returning more to Sweden, his home country, just doing special training programs and promotions in the States. Soren Eriksson passed away in December of 2017. That is just my brief collection of thoughts on Soren. We spent many miles on the road together and had a lot of great times learning, teaching, and promoting chainsaw operations in logging and tree work. I will always be grateful for his mentorship and giving me the opportunity to be his student for many years. On this 5-year anniversary of his passing, I wanted to share and collect some of the people, companies, and trainings of today across North America that, whether they know it or not, influenced by Soren's training. Many people are sharing the Eriksson Trail and today don't realize where the techniques and products came from. The wood industries and chainsaw dedication of a man, Soren Eriksson. The Eriksson Trail. I hope you've enjoyed this informative trail. And this is Tim Hard, wishing you good sawing.